Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. As always, getting ready to go over this 14-game slate at DraftKings. Good God, yesterday was only 4 games. We did okay. I certainly found a way to cash. Not sure why. We had a lot of landmines to work our way through, but playing Cat with 70 fantasy points will do the trick for sure. I think you also noted Azar Thompson, and he was awesome, even though the Pistons won by 90. For no reason. Anyways, there's going to be a lot of games like that, a lot of landmines. It is 14 games. So I think the best thing we can say is to be kind of selective with your plays. There's going to be a lot of values and a lot of studs. So just keep an eye on the starting lineups and injury news and just try to pick plays that you actually feel good about because there are just endless possibilities here. That said, we're going to, give our insight and advice as far as who we do like and hopefully point you in the right direction. If anything we say here does help you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and you can also get extra advice if you come join us in Discord. We hand out core plays leading into lock and also look at your lineups and just try to help you through any processes or issues that you have going into it. If you also play FanDuel and want advice there, we do have FanDuel picks over on Patreon for a small fee each month. And then we have night slate picks for DraftKings, and you can access those there as well. All right, let's get into it. Big slate to talk about. We go position by position, highlighting the best plays. And Cade Cunningham looks really, really good up top against the Bulls. Again, he had 40 fantasy points through 3 quarters yesterday, but the game blew out, so he did not see the fourth. So, assuming we don't get the same exact game as last night, how interested are you in Cade at that price?
Somewhat interested. There's obviously a lot, though. I think Anthony Edwards is just a straight-up better play at 9.5. So you're getting a discount. You're getting a game that may be more competitive. Like after last night, it's very hard to imagine or to trust the Bulls to keep the game close since they got completely destroyed by this exact same team yesterday. But, these rematches are generally tough. Like they're usually kind of lower scoring than the first one and stuff. So Cade's fine. He's got a lot of upside. Obviously, if the game stays close, he can smash the slate. So I'll be playing him a little bit. I do think Edwards, though, is going to be a core play for me and someone I'm going to be playing a ton against Milwaukee shorthanded. Isn't
he also questionable, though?
I think so, but he played in the last game, so I'm assuming he's okay. We'll see. I mean, there's an insane amount of injury news, so pretty much everyone's questionable. It's very hard to keep track of everything.
So
if he's in, I feel pretty good about it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's 9.5 against the Bucks. I don't have a problem with him whatsoever. The nice thing is ownership's going to be kind of split. I don't know if this is true, but Jalen Brunson coming in as like one of the chalky point guards. I mean, screw that, man. 22 minutes yesterday. What the hell was that all about?
So he had 5 fouls
even so.
Early in the third quarter.
That is
so
crazy.
I'm not expecting that to happen. He's 8-4. I think he's an awesome play against Atlanta again, even though he's probably going to get Dyson Daniels.
I don't know. Do you think there's anything more to it than foul trouble though? Like with the All-Star, break coming and everything, or were they just like we're just going to take it easy on? Or you think maybe set of a back-to-back
the other regulars got full minutes. He had 5 fouls like early in the third quarter, so they really couldn't put him back in until the game was almost over. So
yeah, it was brutal.
I see no reason to not like him just based on that. It's a completely different day, completely different matchup.
Yeah,
the Knicks regulars play tons of minutes. That's what they do. Tibbs is not going to change that in the last game before the break. So I like him a lot again. If people are scared to go back to it after he dudded hardcore last night, I'm happy to play him again.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ask for a better matchup against the Hawks. 8.4K, very, very cheap, and his projection is really nice. So no doubt about it. If you can eliminate the recency bias, Brunson does look really good. In that same game, Trae Young has the second best projection at the point guard position. How do you feel about him at 9.6? Does look like a pivot off of Edwards if he gains steam.
Yeah, he always seems to get up for these games at MSG, so the projections don't account for that. He's a great play. He's 9.6. I do strongly prefer Edwards between the two. And Brunson, they have a high total. He's cheap, so I'm going to play him. I know he's going to get Dyson Daniels, so it's not like an actual easy matchup for him, but I do think he's just a good play as a good value. Anunoby being out would make him better. If Anunoby's in, I might pump the brakes on that a little bit, especially because it's point guard of a 14-game slate, and there are approximately 1 million guys who can play.
Yeah, it's true. And there's a guy on his own team that we might like a little bit more anyways. But yeah, that's totally fine. Honestly, there's so many options here. Why don't you just point out the guys up top here that you actually like and want to pay for outside of Anthony Edwards and Brunson?
Yeah, Halliburton gets the Wizards, so the Pacers are going to be kind of among all the teams on the slate. They're in the best spot of them all. They're without Miles Turner again. He's been pretty hit or miss all season. He's been a little bit better lately. He wasn't great last night, but the Knicks are a tougher spot than the Wizards are. So Halliburton at 8-2. I'm going to go right back to the well with that as well. Amen Thompson, Houston's playing Phoenix. Phoenix is on a back-to-back, no Booker. So they're a bit shorthanded. He's going to be a pretty good play in the mid-range at 8-4. Probably more of a small forward than a point guard option, but still decent. I don't mind Steph Curry. He's really come around of late. I think Jimmy being there is not going to hurt him at all. Dallas's defense is not going to be good without AD, without Gafford protecting the rim. They really have nothing in there. So Curry is a fine play. Jordan Poole, Malik Monk. I think if you're going cheap, the headliner has to be Tyus Jones. Without Grayson Allen, without Devin Booker. I haven't seen this. I'm assuming Bradley Beal's out. So Phoenix, again, is very thin, and they're going to be a pretty good source of value, including Bull, as we'll get to.
I see Beal as out.
Yeah, I see that too.
Yep,
Cody Martin
out.
out. They just have no guards left, essentially.
Right. So we can definitely fire up Tyus Jones, sorry, with confidence once again. I mean, I like the Halliburton call and Amen a lot. I prefer Amen just a little bit because he does a ton of shit. As far as matchup, I guess Hallie, but they both look like really nice pivots off of Brunson. Like even aside from the stuff that happened yesterday, Brunson, like you said, probably is going to be matched up with Dyson Daniels, and he's just going to be popular. So if you can find a comparable play that might be better, then that is kind of the situation that I would be looking at, especially on a 14-game slate. Like if Brunson's actually going to be 20% owned, then I'll just go get the guy who's going to be like a fraction of that ownership and projects almost as well. So I think those guys are really, really appealing. Malik Monk looks good at 7.5K. Don't really love playing into like the whole, Kings are healthy and they have all these guys who kind of eat into each other thing, but Malik does project well, and the Pelicans are a really good matchup. Not really into the Lakers thing with Luka probable and Austin Reeves. Like Austin Reeves is a good price, but I feel like that is more like without Luka or LeBron, and Luka is still going to be limited here, so not super into that. If Dame is in, I like Dame. Probably one of my favorite plays at point guard at 9.5K, but midday questionable tag is never great, and obviously against the Timberwolves, not like the best matchup on the road either. There's just endless possibilities here. So I don't really think this is the slate, though, to live in the mid-range. I think this is probably one where we're going stars and scrubs for the most part, but you certainly can get away with living in the mid-range if you want. As we go down here, Tyus Jones is obviously a clear value. Is there anybody else you see? I mean, obviously CJ McCollum is in, so Jose Alvarado, thank God, is off the table. And is there anybody else that you are really going to find yourself gravitating towards as far as like saving cash here?
Moses Moody would be one that stands out. Started in the last game with Jimmy since the trade. Minutes have been up a little bit for him. Point guard, small forward eligible. So again, another guy you're probably playing at small forward instead, but don't mind the spot for Golden State. He's cheap. Pajemski in the same vein, a bit more expensive. So I do prefer Moody, but these guys are getting minutes. Even if they're secondary options on their own team, I think they're viable.
Yeah, I agree. And I also want to say, like, there are guys like KJ Simpson and stuff just because the Hornets have nobody, but I don't want to do that. I don't think you have to do that either. Like, if you were looking at KJ Simpson, just spend $400 more and go get Tyus Jones. There's other things we can do that we don't have to play Hornets against the Magic. That's just something I don't want to do personally. And I won't. I refuse to. Yeah, I like the Moody call. You can use them at small forward as well, so that's kind of nice. Not seeing any other clear values at the moment, but as we know, things can open up. Peyton Pritchard at 6K feels a little bit too elevated, but if Jaylen Brown's also out in addition to Drew Holiday, that's okay. Same with Derek White at 6.6. Do we think Emmanuel Quickley is going to be limited after playing last night?
I have no idea.
That's fair. Don't love the matchup against the Cavs, but I do like the price, 6.2K. He does not project amazingly based off of a perceived 28-minute limit, but he did play quite a bit last night. 33 minutes and 30 minutes.
It's a really bad spot, so I feel like that's kind of weak on this slate.
I don't mind him, actually. I think 6.2K for his usage and role there is pretty good. And honestly, the Cavs have been pretty notorious for being in crazy games the second we want nothing to do with them. I'm not going to make Quickley a priority by any means, but I do think he is still appealing at that 6.2K price tag. Somebody we kind of blipped over is Jamal Murray at 8K. Not sure he's really a priority, but if we're going to be living in the range of like 8.4, 8.5 with somebody like Brunson, certainly somebody we should still consider because they may not have MPJ. Obviously, he gets quite a boost with MPJ out, and they're facing the Blazers, which is a pretty good matchup. So, what are your thoughts there?
Not super into it. I just think there are a lot of other plays I'd rather get to. 11-point spread. Jokic is on the team, so not for me.
That is totally fair. Oh, totally fair. All right, moving on to shooting guard we go. A lot of the same guys are going to apply here. Your boy Ant all the way up top. He is leading by quite a wide margin. Donovan Mitchell against the Raptors, I suppose he's in play at 8.3. I prefer Trey Murphy at 8.2 by quite a bit. No Zion possibly tonight. CJ's back, but obviously Brandon Ingram was traded away. We don't have DeJounte Murray there, and possibly Zion with the midday questionable tag. Trey Murphy looks like a smash play.
Yeah, he's okay. I'm not getting to him a lot as of now. I just think kind of getting to this other stuff in the same range, like Monk in the same range. I think Levine is okay with guard forward eligibility. And then Edwards at the high end is who I'm prioritizing. So I get Murphy. He's been amazing, but as of now, not someone I'm looking to prioritize.
Interesting. We definitely are going to be partying at the fork in the road on Trey Murphy, it looks like. There is also Jalen Green, who looks nicely priced there at 7.2. Nice little pivot off of Malik Monk if he ends up carrying his team. Malik Monk right now is carrying ownership, and that's another reason why I do like Trey Murphy. Extra usage, been crushing, good matchup against the Kings. They do give up a lot of 3-point makes. I think they're like 29th or something. But also, if Monk and Jalen Green are going to be carrying ownership, nice little leverage play there at the same position. But those guys look really good. Jalen Green especially, a little bit extra savings for Monk. No problem there. No problem with the Aaron Fox. CJ McCollum's going to have usage too if he comes back and there's no Zion. All these guys look pretty good. Is there one there besides Monk that you would be prioritizing?
Probably not. I do think Green is okay. Wide range of outcomes for him, but Phoenix is not a very good team these days, shorthanded and all that, so good spot for them. Otherwise, I'm kind of going cheap. I think there's good value, cheaper value at the spot, like Simons at 6'3" without Scoot, without Ayton. They have injury issues. They might get blown out, of course, by Denver, but I do think it's a good matchup individually for Simons. So in the mid-range, I like him quite a bit. I mentioned these Warriors, but Hield again is okay enough at 5K flat. Don't love it. Quentin Grimes started the second half last night for Philly. He played huge minutes, guard forward eligible, 4.7. Been good per minute, obviously, in a pretty small sample since he came to Philly. Brooklyn's a decent enough spot, so I don't mind it. I guess you can play Kobe White if you think Chicago's capable of keeping the game close. That's a big if. But then, kind of going deeper with like LeVert, who seems to have a role. Your boy Karis LeVert for Atlanta.
He's never been my boy.
Nick Smith.
I don't want to do that.
I love it.
The only other guy I'll add here, or I'll just touch on, is Max Christie. He's getting good minutes starting for the Mavs. They are down bad. They're really mostly down their big guys, but obviously, Luka's not there either anymore. So it's basically Kyrie and like Clay. And there's just nobody else. PJ, if he's healthy, looks great, but we'll talk about that in a second. But Max Christie, 30 to 35 minutes here. Decent projection, pretty cheap at 5K. I do not mind him whatsoever. Not exactly a core play just because he's still Max Christie, but I think he's a solid play for sure if you're looking to save and don't want to take a super big dive. Any punts at shooting guard that you're into, like in the 4K or lower range?
I wouldn't say I'm into Neesmith, but he did start last night, had foul trouble. He was miserable.
He got 6 fantasy points.
If you want to buy low on a guy who
Brutal.
might have a decent role, he's okay, but not a priority at all.
One other guy, or two, I guess, technically would be the two guys for the Cavs with Ty Jerome. Well, let me check actually the injury report real quick. Cleveland. So Ty Jerome, Max Strus both could miss. Dean Wade and Okoro remain out. So Sam Merrill and Jalen Tyson could be interesting. Obviously, I would prefer Sam Merrill in terms of somebody who's experienced and somewhat reliable, but Tyson actually grades out as a better per minute player. Both would be pretty much in play here as nice punts if indeed both of those guys ended up missing. And obviously there's blowout risk and everything, so they could get more run, and the Raptors are a pretty good matchup. So just worth mentioning, far from core plays, but they could be pretty nice at 3.5K, and I think Jalen might be the the min? I don't see him on here. But anyways, I digress. On to small forward we go. Let's see who's up top here. We have LeBron James at 10.5K. His price has come down slightly. He faces the Jazz, but Luka is there. So I'm not super eager to go pay for LeBron. It is the Jazz. He's not like insanely priced, like 11K or anything. So I think you could still consider him. He has a really nice projection. He's not going to be owned. I just think with Luka there, it doesn't really make a ton of sense on a 14-game slate. Tatum is right behind him, 9.9K against the Spurs. I think he's fine. Another guy who's got a ceiling and projecting pretty well, but isn't going to be owned. I just don't really think this is where I want to pay up. I think it's probably going to be center and point guard for the most part. But that said, like if PJ Washington is in 7K flat, PJ with a 40-point fantasy projection, he's my favorite play here at power forward.
Yeah, I think we're at small forward, which he is now.
Oh, my bad.
He hasn't been for a long time.
Well, he's power forward as well.
He is a good play. I'm a little concerned he's potentially limited. They've been talking about him not being in practice and stuff lately, so I don't really know what to expect from a minute standpoint. And you're paying a lot for 7K, so you have to be pretty clear on the minutes if you're going to click that. But I think it's fine if we don't hear that he's limited. Other than that, like guys we talked about already, LeVert, and Thompson, Levine a little bit. Avdia at 6'4" is okay. He's been brutal lately, but Portland's shorthanded, like we talked about. Minutes should come up in theory for him. Never mind getting to Hart, even on a back-to-back. Just the minutes are insane. He's still priced up, but we saw the ceiling again last night. He has it. DeRozan at 7K, second play, I guess. Grimes. Tatum on the high end is fine. Not a priority either, but San Antonio could be a high-scoring game. I don't mind that. San Antonio's defense has been brutal in the last couple of weeks as well. So Tatum as a spend looks pretty decent.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I like the Denny call. He had 37 fantasy points last night, and he bounced back nicely. Or his last game. Did he play last night?
No.
Okay, last game, rather. But 6.4K, his price has come down a little bit. Faces the Nuggets. Oh, that's what I'm thinking. The last game he had was against the same team he faces tonight, against Denver. It is a positive matchup. Denver's defense is not that scary. Also, Jeremy Grant is questionable, and DeAndre Ayton is out, as is Scoot Henderson. So the Blazers are shorthanded, which means we can feel pretty confident that Denny is going to get a full allotment of minutes. And when that is the case, he is a good per minute guy. It is a good matchup, so I do like him a good deal at 6.4. Of course, Kuzma at 6.3 will look amazing if Dame is out. I think he's still a really good play, even if Dame is in. I just like him. He had 27 fantasy points last time, so obviously Kuz is not, immune to the disappointing outing, even with Giannis not there. But I think he's a good play at 6.3 as it stands, and he would look really, really good, possibly even a core play at that price if Dame ends up being ruled out. If Ant ends up not playing, Jaden McDaniels at 6.3 would look really good. Christian Brown, his price is ticking up, but he's been worth it. 6.3K. I think as it stands, not super interested, but if MPJ is for sure out, I think he's a fine play in that range. Then we're getting to guys we kind of already touched on. Royce O'Neal, man. 5K, Royce O'Neal is going to have an expanded role. Obviously, no Devin. And who's the other guy out for the Suns? Oh, yeah, Beal is also out. So he and Grayson Allen. Yeah, so he, among other guys, are going to benefit. Obviously, we already talked about Tyus Jones. And Royce is another guy who should be very, very viable there at 5K. Not seeing anybody else I absolutely have to get to. You already touched on Quentin Grimes at shooting guard. Yeah, I think that's probably it. Oh, Strouder. I like Strouder at 4.8K. Been getting a lot of minutes, been performing pretty well. If MPJ is in, I don't want to play Strouder. I think he's still okay. But if MPJ is out, Strouder looks awesome to me. Also worth mentioning that the Philly guys are missing some bodies, right? No Embiid, no Eric Gordon. So somebody like Justin Edwards, I do know that, they do have Quentin Grimes there. So Quentin Grimes feels a lot safer, but somebody like Justin Edwards could push for 30 minutes there at 4.2K. Just worth keeping in your player pool, possibly. All right. Now, power forward, LeBron's over there too. You have KD, who's all by himself with no Devin Booker or Bradley Beal. So KD looks awesome at 9K. The only question is, will he be limited whatsoever on the second leg of a back-to-back set? I don't think so. I don't think we have any reason to. The matchup at Houston is not ideal, but he projects like a god. What's your interest level here?
Pretty minimal. The matchup is brutal. They're on a back-to-back. They could get blown out. I think I'd rather spend elsewhere. I see why you play him, but not my favorite play tonight.
Yeah, in terms of price and projection and usage, I mean, he looks great. Sometimes I just want to ignore the matchup. I think in this case, if I'm landing on KD, I'm not going to fight it just because everything does look good except for the, the straight up matchup. Looking here, Siakam against Wizards, that looks good. I have no problem with that. I prefer Thomas Bryant for a lot cheaper. But I mean, if you want to play Siakam at 7-7 against Washington, there's nothing wrong with that. Evan Mobley against Raptors looks good. Are we playing Zion if he's in at 8.5?
I would if he's in. I'm a little concerned that he got a conditioning downgrade to questionable with the Pelicans not being on the first half of back or on the second half of back to back.
Right.
So we'll see. I do want to like him if he's in. I think it's a pretty good spot, but kind of a red flag with him if he's out of shape still after playing several games in a row.
He's out of shape after many years in the NBA. It makes no sense.
I
think for GPPs, the price is okay enough, and he's just such a good per minute guy that you can do it. It's not my favorite thing to do on a 14 game slate because you're just like really banking on him hitting in limited action. Especially like you said, he's not even 100% apparently or whatever. So not great. Banchero at 8.3 probably feels a little bit safer. Major bullet risk there, obviously against the Hornets, but he crushed in his last game. So he once again looks totally viable at that price. Feels like we might have just like missed the boat there. Like if you didn't play Banchero last time, you might be kicking yourself and wanting to play him here. And perhaps with the bullet risk, that could be a mistake. But in theory, he looks good. John Collins at 6.7 looks pretty good. And Naz Reid at 7.1. He looks really good if Ant is out. I think he's still in play at 7.1 either way, though.
Yeah, he's perfectly fine. The minutes have been through the roof for him with Randall out, so I don't mind that at all. Love the Siakam thing. Love the Avdia thing, like we talked about at small forward. I forgot to mention Salon as a potential punt at small forward, but Charlotte
you did.
Is so thin.
You did forget to mention Salon. Yes,
he's quite a terrible player in the vein of Keyshawn George.
I don't want to do that.
He's cheap and getting minutes, and I think he's viable. So if I'm going to play anyone from Charlotte, it's probably going to be Salon. Hopefully better value opens up, but
I'll say the same thing I said earlier in Discord. They are viable. Nick Smith Jr., Salon, whatever Hornets are starting, even some of the bench guys, they are viable. Like Diabate was awesome last game, by the way. I've been watching some of Diabate. He's actually kind of a fun player for DFS purposes, like putbacks and dunks and like blocks and everything, and obviously rebounds well. Point is, they are viable, but on 14 game slate, I don't really want to do that if I don't have to. But if you're going to, you are right. Salon at what was he, 3.6?
Indeed.
Yeah, so you're getting pretty cheap exposure to that. So it feels like it's just a lot less risky. But we don't really have to do that because we have 4.3K God Bull. He crushed yesterday, 56 fantasy points. Maybe it's even 58. Just went nuclear. That's the second game in a row with over 40 fantasy points. And now there's no Devin or Brad. No reason for him to not start and no reason that he can't pay off a 4.3K price. Like, I definitely wouldn't demand 40 fantasy points. Surely not 50, but I think he can get there at that price. Are you playing him?
Yeah, I mean, as of now, he's the best value on the slate, which is really disgusting on a 14-game slate, but he's good per minute. I'm assuming he's going to start. He did nothing last night to make anyone think he wouldn't after he kind of surprisingly got in the starting lineup yesterday. So I'm a little bit nervous about a chalky bowl against the Rockets on a back-to-back, but he looks great. I don't really have an issue with it. He's cheap. I wish he had multi-positional eligibility, but it is what it is. I think he's okay enough. Asar Thompson, again, still 5.2. Like, the price has come up a bit, but the matchup against Chicago is just as good as it was yesterday. The minutes have been coming up a little bit for him. He only played 22 last night. Hopefully that bodes well for his potential to play 27-ish, 28 tonight if he's in. So if Asar's not going to be his own he was yesterday on the bigger slate, I think it's a perfectly fine spot to go right back to. And then Precious OG out should keep starting. I think he's viable as well.
Yeah, we got more value with Najee Marshall, assuming PJ Washington is out. His minutes would climb considerably, and he would look really, really good. I think he's in play right now, but he would look a lot better if that was the case. Matas Buzelis at 4.9K. Didn't get there yesterday, but he actually scored the ball well, and if he actually played the whole game, he probably would have made it. So, in theory, the matchup with the Pistons is not that bad. He should start. He should push for 30-plus minutes. I think he's still a fine value. If you don't want to eat the Bull chalk, you can maybe get him at just less ownership for only $600 more. Love the Azar Thompson call. He looks great again against the Bulls. Just the real question is, will that game stay close? Unknown. For the Houston thing when we're considering Suns guys, it's worth noting that Jabari Smith and FVV are both out, and Şengün is questionable. So I don't know if I'd be that afraid of the matchup like I normally would be. So I think it's a little bit better of a spot than normal. So just keep that in mind. So also a couple other guys. There's Keyshawn George at 4.5K, just getting a lot of minutes. And the Pacers are a good matchup, good DFS environment in general. Not sure I'd make him a priority on a slate this size because outside of the minutes, he's not really a great player, but he is cheap. So if you want to get a guy that is not getting a lot of ownership right now, that saves you some money, I think he is in play. And then there's this Pels guy, Carlo Matkovic. I don't really know anything about him. I know he hasn't played a ton, but he has 4.1K, and he could be looking at minutes, especially if Zion is out. He has played quite a bit lately. It's been very productive. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'd be fine if Zion's out. If Zion's in, I don't really want to have to go there.
That is entirely fair. I think that's about it for power forward for the most part. I think Prosper also could be looking at big minutes if PJ Washington is out because Dallas just has nobody down low. So up top here at center, Jokic leads the way with a 64 fantasy point projection. With all this value opening up, how hard are you finding it to stay away from Jokic, or do you prefer to not play him tonight?
I always prefer to play him. Like, he's probably one of the only guys who can get 100 fantasy points. So playing him is obviously pretty appealing. I'm a little concerned about the game staying close. He's going to play primarily against Donovan Clingan, so the spot is pretty awesome for him. No issue whatsoever, but center is just insanely rich. So if you don't want to pay all the way up for him, there are plenty of other options like Sabonis, Şengün if he's in at the high end, Karl Anthony Towns like we talked about a little bit. Like, there's just an insane amount of stuff. The Pistons centers again are viable. Even Isaiah Stewart as a punt if you don't want to play Duren. Vooch, I guess, on a back-to-back's fine. I think he's probable, so it's okay. Clingan himself at 4.6 with Ayton out, probably going to start. We'll see if he does. A little bit concerned about the matchup against Jokic for his foul risk, but he's cheap. He's good per minute. If you can avoid the fouls, he can probably get there for you. There's a lot at center to look at, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Clingan is only really viable if Robert Williams is indeed out. I think he's still questionable. So
I think
keep
he's
an eye on
viable
that.
if Robert Williams is in.
Yeah, viable, but then they would just be splitting minutes against Jokic. I don't feel great about that. I think there's enough value elsewhere. And like Thomas Bryant for $400 more against the Wizards, I very much just prefer that. Clingan is definitely in play, no doubt about it. It's not like Jokic is some elite defender or anything. So I don't really love playing people against them, though, because obviously the foul trouble risk. So I think it's fine. I'm just probably not going to do it personally. I'd just rather do Bryant. But you're not wrong, man. Lots of plays here. Even Jalen Duren, we could go back to the well against the Bulls. He didn't hit yesterday, but that was because of the blowout. He still had 23 fantasy points, one of the two, in just 3 quarters. So he probably would have hit if that game stayed close. Just like other guys that are just cheap. Isaiah Hartenstein, 6.5K. John Collins, like I said before, Jared Allen, 6.4. Not like those guys are priorities, and Yeka at 6.1, but they're like viable plays. Like, they're fine plays. On any other slate, a slate half this size, we would be looking at them a little bit more seriously. Of course, my favorite play is going to be Thomas Bryant at 5K. Playing the Wizards, great matchup. He's been really good lately. No Miles Turner, so he looks awesome. Nice salary saver. I'm probably going to go out of my way here to play Jokic just because we know we're like guaranteed for the most part. 55 to 60 fantasy points in the worst case scenario. But yeah, the game needs to stay close. I think I would consider one Portland run back. Right now, my preferred play would be Denny Avdia, but there's also Simons, like you were saying before, just because if Jokic is going to get there, we probably need the game to go, to be competitive in the fourth quarter. And then we probably should benefit from that on the other side. But honestly, dude, Cat and Sabonis stand out big time. If you don't want to pay the extra $3,000 for Jokic, those guys both look amazing tonight.
Yeah, like we said, there's just an insane amount of stuff at center to play. Jokic is the one I want the most, so I'm going to try to make it happen. I think pairing him with Bryant makes a lot of sense. So it's almost, I mean, it's not a lock that it's a double center slate, but it almost always is on a slate of this size. So potential for more value to open up, like guys like Kongwu and Hartenstein and Jared Allen. Like these guys aren't going to get any ownership at all. Şengün, I assume if he's in, won't either. So a lot to like. I think Jokic is the priority, but if you don't want to play him, there's enough other good stuff to where you're okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think though that well, let's just segue into our flag plant and strategy. I'll just start off with a strategy perspective. Just like shooting guard and small forward, maybe power forward to a lesser degree. That's like where I'm not as excited to pay for people. Point guard is loaded, center is loaded. So even though it's probably going to be kind of a chalky-ish build to start with Jokic, Bryant, or just two centers in general, I think it kind of might be the right build. Like that might be the best way to attack the slate. And then you can just get different beyond that. All right. So with that in mind, what is your overall strategy for the slate? And do you have a number one overall flag plant that you love and are going to be using in a lot of your lineups?
Yeah, it's going to be Edwards. I just feel very secure about the spot. I'm not concerned about the Q tag. Like we said, he played through the last one, so should be good to go. He's been on a complete tear without Randall and without DiVincenzo. Milwaukee not stopping anybody, especially with Lillard in there if he plays. So great matchup all around. I love Jokic. I love Edwards. I'm going to try to pair them if I can. And if I don't, I'm probably going down to Towns. But, Jokic and Edwards would be the way I'd go first.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that for sure. I'm with you on Jokic. I'm with you on Thomas Bryant. I'm going to eat up a lot of this value, and I'm going to try to go kind of balanced with my next level of studs. And I think the best way to do that is with my flag plant is Trey Murphy. Really good matchup for him. He's been on a heater, still not that expensive. And if Zion is out, he just looks way better. I think he's really good anyways, but if Zion is out, it's just a cemented play for me personally. All right, that is going to do it for us. If you hadn't noticed, there's a lot to consider. Like even when we hand out our core plays, I said this in Discord, you can still get different off of our core plays. You can use 3 of the 4 core plays or whatever the case may be, or just go against them completely if you want to do something different. The point is, if you want to get different on the slate, you don't have to try very hard. But if you want those updated core plays, come join our Discord and we will hand them out leading into lock and help you out in any other way we possibly can. And you can also help us out by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and also coming in and joining us in Discord. All right, thanks for watching and good luck.